our mad rush toward globalization have on the lives of individuals. That said, I just can't see a way to sell this successfully to a general trade publisher, nor can I see a way to revise it that wouldn't compromise some of the elements I liked here. Given my reservations, I'm going to step aside so you can find another agent who will give your work the full enthusiasm it deserves. I'm sorry to disappoint you and to pass on work by a writer who is clearly gifted, but others will surely feel differently. And I certainly wish you every success. I hope it also goes without saying that I welcome the opportunity to read any future work. Well, there hasn't been any future work. So, I want to yell at them and say, I am a tenured professor. I have a PhD. As a journalist, my words were published the very day after I wrote them. As a professor, people take notes when I speak. I notice Gabriella is taking notes, so that still feels good. My scholarship has been hailed as cutting edge. Blah, blah, blah. None of those things is going to help. I'm just going to have to write a more compelling novel. Now, you're probably thinking that stories about rejection letters only sound cute and compelling and poignant when a writer has actually won a Pulitzer or a Booker Prize and is having the last laugh. It doesn't mean a thing when the manuscript is just sitting returned into her mailbox. You're right. But like me, you're just going to have to deal with it. I know that the title of my talk said Embracing Failure. But I've spent a better part of this year actually struggling and straining against it. Far from having the last laugh, I was having a second and a third and an eighth cry. Until I started to heed what these letters were saying and started to revise the novel. Alongside that, and probably because of that process of revision, I began to truly, really reflect on failure. I went back then to that time I mentioned to you in my childhood when I first encountered that word. I am in first grade in a school called Cambridge Hall in a town called Dehradun in northern India. All the school children are assembled in the school grounds, and the principal, Father Tuck, is calling out each and every child's examination results. Strange practice. It's such a happy day for me. We're all out of class. I'm sitting in the sun with my friends, wearing a school uniform I really love. The principal calls out my brother's name, and just as he has done with every other child so far, the principal tells my brother, "You have been promoted into the next class." Then it's my turn, and the principal says, "You have failed." Everyone turns around to look at me. I have never felt so special. Someone shouts out the word, "Failure," and I think they're cheering for me. As the assembly ends, my father and uncle arrive on their scooter to pick me up. I skip and run toward them, laughing and shouting, "I'm a failure! I'm a failure!" It's really happened. Like I said, the word has a lovely cadence to it, a beautiful sound. But then I see what it means. I see it on the faces of my father and my uncle and my brother, who has by now caught up with me to hush me up and tell me to stop acting like a fool. We found out that it was math. But thanks to my father and my uncle, who demanded to see the math examination, we also found out that I had added the numbers horizontally rather than vertically, as the teacher required. My parents argued with Father Tuck. She may not have a good sense of direction, but clearly she knows how to add. Father Tuck relents, and I'm not held back in first grade. I guess I'm not a failure. That word is taken back from me. But now another word takes its place. Not a word, but a name. Dumbo. And this has nothing to do with the Disney elephant character. It was just a nickname for someone considered really dumb in India when we were kids. So, I may have been sent off from first grade, but I had already done a lot of foolish things that day. And let's face it, if some doubt has been cast on your mathematical abilities in India in the early 1970s, and you don't know words like failure, you're just taking up a valuable seat in school and should be lucky to even be teased and tormented by other kids. So the rest of my childhood and most of my youth, I went about fulfilling my claim to that name, Dumbo. I wish I could say that the shock of that experience made me take refuge in books, or develop an inner life of contemplation, or made me work really hard to get good grades at school. But no, I spent all those growing years just sitting around, staring into space, and it's all been documented. While my mother and brother read the newspapers, I sat around grinning in the shadows. I spent my time playing with dolls, playing dress up, playing on the beach with my little sister, and apparently playing with guns. Why am I talking to you about those years, apart from wanting to show you my goofy childhood photographs? Because I believe that those years of failure and foolishness freed me from the burden of being smart. And in doing so, they laid a foundation for something else. The perception, the discernment, the intangible sense that I could fail again and again and again, that I was actually meant to do that, in order that my worldview, my sense of self, my inner core would never be tied to any measure of smartness or any outward measure of success. And so I was free to go out and achieve anything I wanted and abandon it when I wanted, or morph it into something else, or laugh at it and at myself. Having said that, let me remind you that I have wept and wept over those agent rejection letters. There is no Buddhism here for you, not even any Hinduism. But that weeping is how I received my old friend failure. Isn't that a gorgeous name for a friend? Okay, failure, you are here. Would you like a cup of tea? Or would you like to sit on my couch and judge me as I get my act together once again? So it was failure that drove me to start scribbling short stories in my notebook in 6th grade. Now this is interesting. I didn't know that I started writing these things in 6th grade. I learned it on Facebook when a friend of mine from 6th grade wrote to me and said, hey, remember all those weird stories you used to write in 6th grade? That's how I knew it was 6th grade. It was failure that made me stay up all night studying for only those math examinations that mattered. In India, you need to get good grades in the board examinations. I'm sure my Indian friends here know that. In the 10th and 12th grade, and then you can free yourself of math forever. So I clawed my way through these examinations after my parents spent a lot of money on tutoring and a lot of time drying my tears. Thank goodness for parents who will dry your tears. It was failure that rescued me from my sleepy boredom in an undergraduate business major and brought me to feminism and to journalism, despite the fact that my worst grades in my post-graduation studies were in journalism. My students, you should listen to this. Again, I was told that I was being foolish. Why wouldn't I go into public relations, a subject in which my grades were bright and shiny? I replied, because I think that would be the smart thing to do. And at least one teacher of mine listened. Thank God for teachers who will listen. Every morning of my journalism career, I awoke prepared to fail. I went out and did foolish things. Traveled alone as a 21-year-old single woman into remote parts of the country, joined the crime beat in a city in which I didn't speak the local language, and ran right into the streets during violent Hindu-Muslim riots when I was several months pregnant. I should apologize to my child then. I had no design, no ambition, no expectations of success. So again, I didn't think twice before moving from the media capital of India, Mumbai, to a smaller, sleepier town at the time, Bangalore, because I got married to someone who wanted to live there. Again, when I was 26 and was the first woman to be a chief reporter in the city of Bangalore, I didn't think twice about leaving it and moving to Singapore to follow my husband's career. You see, even my feminism did not have any expectations from me. I didn't expect to succeed as a feminist, just to practice it in many different ways. The same with journalism. I didn't expect to be smart, just to be foolish, and it worked fine. I didn't even expect to be smart when I arrived on a fellowship to do my PhD in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In fact, I felt like quite the fraud, both overwhelmed and delighted by all the things I did.